Welcome to the Stone Carvers Guild podcast. Here you will meet a variety of carvers working throughout North America. Drawing on our collective experience, we seek to share knowledge about this ancient art and to do our part to ensure that stone carving will play an important role in built environments for generations to come. So whether you are an experienced carver, new to the craft, or just curious, put on your safety goggles, open up your mind, and welcome to the workshop. So I'm kind of excited about this interview because I'm a Minnesotan and Scott's a Minnesotan. And I used to work for an interior designer a long time ago in Minnesota, and I remember seeing Scott Halverson on her contact list. Like I know Scott Halverson from my Minnesota days, and I had no idea that he was in the guild. So
how fun!
Like I never met him, but I knew of him.
And he's here.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome, Scott.
Hello. Scott, we usually start off our interviews by making our guests sing. So maybe...
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Darn it, I thought maybe...
Really? No songs? No sea shanties?
No sea shanties today, sorry.
Scott, I'm a Minnesotan too. So maybe you could sing something particularly Minnesotan like...
Is there a Minnesota fight song?
There is the Sky You Ma song, but I don't know how it goes because it's been about 1,000 years since I was at the University of Minnesota. So
you're not of Scandinavian descent, are you?
Scandinavian? Yes.
You are. You're a real Minnesotan.
Swedish and
Norwegian. That's great.
Mostly Norwegian.
Great. Are you stoic?
Like one could say that. Yes.
You sound like a real Minnesotan. That's great. Which makes sense that you wouldn't sing in public. Anyway.
I don't think he's going to sing.
I'm not going to sing.
Anyway, I'm excited to meet you because I'm from Minnesota. I used to work in the near the Northeast Arts District, so I can imagine.
That's where our shop is here.
That's so cool.
We're actually just north of the Northeast Arts District, but
okay.
So Scott, when you're at a social gathering in the Northeast District, how do you introduce yourself?
I try to avoid social gatherings, but if I'm forced to be at one, I say, "Hi, my name is Scott." And then when they say, "What do you do, Scott?" I tell them I'm a stone carver, and then they're like, "Oh, wow, stone carver, what's that?" Blah, blah, blah. And then I have to go into the whole thing of what a stone carver is, and it's painful because...
What do you tell them?
I tell them first I say I carve stone, and then they want to know what that means. Does that involve a mold? No, well, only if I'm making a model, but I tell them I take stone and I carve it with hammers and chisels and pneumatic hammers and saws and all sorts of things, and make big stones into smaller stones and blocks of stones into eagles and things like that. And they all swoon, and then I roll my eyes and retreat to a far corner.
I'm so sympathetic with that. Yes, I have been at that party. I've been there.
I like that making bigger stones into smaller stones. I mean, that is one legitimate way to explain it.
Technically, it is true, yes.
But I've seen your website, and I know you do more than just make big stones into small stones. It looks like you have
when you're saying my website, are you looking at my old website or the new Northern Stone Carving website?
Oh, it's Architrave, the one that's linked on the guild website to Architrave.
Yeah, I need to update that.
Oh, but it says you do models from clay, AAC autoclaved aerated concrete, and other materials.
Yes. Well, anything. I mean, I don't know. I don't like wood. I don't know why. It's lightweight. I probably should like it, but I don't.
I like your logo, Northern Stone Carving.
Oh, thank you.
.com. That's cool.
That AAC, we did a big job a couple years back for a building over in downtown St. Paul that needed a huge amount of stonework, but the quarry was closed. They couldn't find stone. The contractor couldn't find stone. So they decided to do it out of cast concrete, but they still wanted us to carve the models, or provide models. So we just took huge blocks of AAC, and if they weren't big enough, we glued them together. But we ended up carving those and then giving those to somebody, and they made molds and cast them in concrete.
Wow.
But the carving we actually carved the models.
Huh.
And the AAC is about as close to wood as I like to get. It'll float, and you can carve it with a wood chisel, but
Oh, interesting. I've
it's
never heard of that before.
you can't breathe the dust, so it's annoying.
Oh. Hmm.
Unlike the marble and limestone, where you can just inhale to your heart's content. You
Right.
shouldn't. Don't do that, kids.
I think the rule of thumb that I heard is that if the stone is light colored, then it's generally safe to breathe.
Unless of course it's light granite or
unless it's light. No, I'm saying like if it's limestone or marble,
yeah,
that's a light color, then it's pretty much just calcium
that
you're taking in. But if it's got a dark tint to it, then it's got other
exactly.
other minerals.
Oh.
Should we throw a little like disclaimer in this for anyone
yeah,
listening?
and I am not a medical doctor.
Consult a medical professional.
Wear your respirators, people. Wear your respirators.
Mm.
It's like at the beginning of the pandemic when people kept asking me what I thought. I was like, I think you shouldn't ask a stone carver about
medical advice.
What to do about medicine.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
Probably wise.
So tell us a little bit about your shop. Where you said where's starting with what is the Northeast District? I don't know what that is.
Well, Northeast Minneapolis has a little arts community, I guess, and there's a district where they have every spring they have Art a Whirl where they have open studios and whatnot, and it's a thing. And it's just a small area of Northeast Minneapolis, which is a small area of Minneapolis.
Okay.
So far, we have not had anybody over for that because A, I don't like people. B, it's hard to have people in a stone shop. It's just dust. You touch anything, you turn white, and then it's probably some sort of insurance problem as well.
Mm.
And you recently moved in when you changed from architrave to northern stone carving?
No, I was in the same building when it was just me, architrave stone carving. Then I moved out of the space because I was hired by a local company to work over on the Minnesota State Capitol renovation. We did the exterior stonework on that, and I was doing that every day, so I didn't need my own shop space. So I moved out of here. But then after that was done, I moved back in here and we started Northern Stone Carving with Margaret Moore, who I met at the state capitol. And she ended up moving here. We decided to start a business together because it's a lot easier with two people than one.
Mm.
So we've been here in this current location since early 2017, I guess.
Mm.
Okay. And what does it look like? Like, just walk us through the space.
It's in the lower level. There's a couple windows that you can not see out of, but they do let some air in. Lower level of the building, you can drive down in. Ceilings are 12 feet high, and we've got a gantry crane in the middle of the room. The main room, you can drive in. There's an overhead door you could drive in. And then we have a separate space where we do all the dusty stuff, which is got big doors that you can put stuff. You could drive in there if you maneuvered carefully, but and that's the whole shop is probably 1,500 square feet. The dust booth, as we call it, is probably 10 by 20, I'd say. And we do pretty much all the carving in that room. And then got a small office area and then some storage areas. And then we've got a shipping container outside with a bunch of stone in it that is also annoying because it's a shipping container. We have access. There's a forklift on site that we can use whenever we want, so that's real handy. So that with the gantry crane inside the shop, we managed to move whatever we want to move.
So you can drive the forklift down. So you said you're in a basement, so you have
it's lower level. You can drive in. There's like a ramp that goes down.
Oh, okay.
It was some industrial building in a past life, and it's
got it.
There's like a printing shop down the hall and a guy does upholstery for hot rods and stuff like that. So.
But you don't have a loading dock. So, I mean, that's interesting in the sense that you can do big stuff, but
Right, because we have a forklift, so we can just drive out, and
yeah.
if it's on a flatbed, I can unload it.
Yeah.
Whatever, I can unload.
And then you drive the forklift down into your cool.
Are you able to successfully contain the dust in your little dust booth?
Pretty much. We have a struggling dust collector, and that it's got a HEPA filter, and you have to change and vacuum the pre-filter frequently. But I try to avoid dry cutting as much as possible. But even if that room gets full of dust and you can barely see from one end to the other, that filter will clean it out. I don't know, in 5-10 minutes. And it doesn't. It's negative pressure, so it's sucking in from the exterior. So it keeps the dust pretty well contained.
So do you work primarily with pneumatic chisels or with hand tools?
Both, but mostly with pneumatic because we are not silly.
Oh
yeah,
no!
There it is.
There it is.
You're not. Would you like to?
The podcast is over.
Would you like to expand on that?
Well, it's
because
just,
you're not silly.
It's faster. It's safer. It's for instance, I've been carving. Both of us. We've been working on an eagle with spread wings. He's about to take off out of limestone, and his wing at the outer edges, is about a half an inch thick. And to do that with, I use I forget what the size, a really tiny little katuri.
Okay.
And it vibrates, but it's a very small vibration, and it's to do that by hand with a hammer. Even a small little mallet, you're going to be hitting it and causing a lot. It would scare me because that's going to be not nearly as delicate, because I can just touch the vibrating thing and just erase basically stone instead of. So in cases like that, I think it's just wise to use that.
Got it.
I think Nick Fairplay once told me that when the time that when he switches to a handheld is when the pneumatic is just moving too fast. Like until then he'll just stay on the pneumatic. But once it's happening faster than he can think about it, then he will switch to where do a single, tap here and tap there. Which I always thought was a good way to think about it.
That is a good way. Although in that case, I just slow down. But
yeah, but that's what I just throttle that exhaust. And
I tend to sometimes get I'll slow down too much because I was diagnosed with ADHD not too long ago, and I'm 60. I'll be 61 in about a month. So for my whole life, I've been doing things in not a scattered way, I guess you could say, which is not a good thing for a stone carver because you probably should be focusing on things. And I was jumping around for, I'll look at this, and then, that part over there needs work, and I'll jump over there and I'll work on that, and this and that and other thing. And finally, I've been able to actually concentrate on one area at a time. And for the most part, I guess it's not completely cured. But.
And so you said you worked on the Minnesota State Capitol, and I'm also looking at your website. Like it looks like this. It says the 11th Michigan Infantry. It's a big.
Yeah. The state capitol.
You work on you work on big stuff, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like
sometimes when possible, because I like working on big stuff more than little stuff, but just because stuff is hard to hang on to. The state capitol, I made models for, they replaced a lot of capitals or half capitals, or not full, some of the full ones, a lot of them, the pilaster capitals. But initially I carved a model out of marble on site, and then they shipped that to Italy, where they reproduced it by a lot with CNC machines and whatnot, robots. And
Oh.
then they would ship those back to us in Minnesota, not quite finished. And then with the edges, any edge that was where it was meeting an old stone, the old stone, they would leave 2 inches of uncarved material so we could then carve it, because I made a model that was sort of the average of everything, but there was a lot of variation because the guys that were carving up there originally were just banging them out, and they weren't measuring too much by the looks of things. They were just kind of like, okay, this is the right size, that does this goes here. And so I made the model, and I made other models for other pieces, and they sent me to Italy twice to check up on the Italians for some reason, but they seem to know most.
They love it when Americans come and check on.
Yeah, and I felt bad because I had to go. Can you fix that part right there? Because that's not quite right.
Oh, wow.
But they ended up loving me, so it was fine. Rode a bicycle around Carrara. It was in Carrara, and man, is that a nice place to visit.
Mm.
And the year before, or not the year before, a couple years before, when they sent me the first time, I went to what's the town down the road? Pietrasanta.
Pietrasanta.
Yeah, and that's pretty, but it's a little more touristy.
So why did so you said this is the Minnesota State Capitol?
Yeah.
What was the original material for the state capitol?
The exterior, Georgia marble. Which
so why did they get it carved? Oh, what?
Georgia
yeah. So why did?
It's very hard, and it's got huge grain. It's terrible for carving, really. Terrible material.
Huh.
It deteriorates pretty quickly.
Oh, okay. So is that so? Why did so? Was that your decision to do the Italian marble for the restoration, or was that?
Oh, no. This was Georgia marble. They got the marble from Georgia, same quarry.
Right.
And then they would, after I made the model, they would just send marble from Georgia straight to Italy, then back to Minnesota.
They sent the marble from Georgia to Italy and then back?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they don't have any Georgia marble over there in Italy. So.
But so why did the Italians carve it? Like, don't we have CNC machines here?
You would think,
are they just better?
They didn't find. Initially, they were working with a company. There actually was a couple that they worked with, but they weren't that great either. There was one up in Toronto, and they had some problems with them. And they ended up finding one of the contractors knew somebody in Italy. They were all right.
Wow, that just seems incredibly labor intensive, or shipping intensive, I guess.
Yeah, you would think that would not be the cheapest way to do it, and it probably wasn't. But
yeah,
somebody made a lot of money on that deal.
No kidding.
Not necessarily the stone carvers.
Huh.
But it was fun. It was a fun project.
Wow. And really that's all done?
That's been done. That was finished in end of 2016, I guess. The over the front door, there's 3 keystones, 3 archways. And I did one of the keystones on site there, which was, I don't know, it's about 3 feet high. That was a lot of fun. Terrible. I mean, it's a nightmare to carve, but it was fun to do. And I hit a little June bug on the underside of it. It's got on the edge, it has this bead and dart detail. And on the underside, one of the beads I turned into a June bug and didn't tell anybody about it until the very end. And one of the architects were horrified. But the guy in charge of spending the state's money absolutely loved it. So,
that's awesome.
That's what matters.
So, but the Minnesota State Capitol isn't that old, right? So, and you said the Georgia marble deteriorates.
It was 1912, something like that, 1900, right around there, turn of the century.
So, is it just going to, like, how did things deteriorate in the last 100 years such that they needed to be restored to that extent, and then are they just going to deteriorate again?
Acid rain mostly.
Really?
Pollution, mostly pollution, yeah.
Oh.
And now that's not nearly as bad as it used to be, so.
Oh, okay. So the hope would be that it will last better this time.
Yeah. Well, the stuff we put on will last at least another 100 years. The original stuff. Well, we got rid of most of the bad stuff that was literally falling off the building.
Wow. Huh.
I'm looking on your site. I don't see any photographs of that. Is that?
There's somewhere on the Northern Stone Carving site, which is not a very good website right now. Somewhere in there, I know there's a link to, there's some state capitol work in there. I don't know how to find it or where it is exactly, but I know it's in there. So
I think I might have just found it.
And then just recently, like a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, a year ago, I don't know. Time flies when you're getting old. There's a Swedish Institute in town here, which is in a beautifully carved limestone mansion that this fellow put up. He was a newspaper guy, I think. He put it up and didn't live in it for very long at all, and then tried to give it away to the Swedish Institute, what became the Swedish Institute. Anyway, we ended up carving a finial for there's like 5 or 6 finials way up on top. But we carved one of those, it's about 5 feet high. And then 13 scuppers on there's a patio sort of by the main entrance. And originally the water would come off and drain through these scuppers. And they looked kind of like Creature from the Black Lagoon faces, these sort of fish faces. But water would go through there, and eventually they would clog up, and they'd freeze, and they were all busted out.
Oh.
And so they had us replace. We did all of those new carving, and then with just dummy. They're not actual scuppers. They don't actually drain water anymore. They put in a whole different drainage system.
Oh.
So now they just look like the old ones, but if you got on your hands and knees, looked up in there, the hole doesn't go anywhere in their mouths. But that was a lot of fun. And fun fact, the guys, there was 2 brothers and then another guy who was the head stone carver, and then these 2 brothers who were both really good carvers. They did all the work, the carving on that building right after they got done working on the state capitol. So we ended up working and fixing stuff that they had worked on the state capitol, and then followed them over and worked on stuff that they had done at the Swedish Institute, which was kind of fun.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
I don't think of Minnesota as the sort of place that has enough masonry with carving to have any sort of restoration business.
No,
but
there's not a lot. I mean, someone just called us a couple weeks ago and said we need a windowsill or something. Okay, we can do that. I mean, that's typically what it is. There are a few older buildings, but it's pretty. Most of our work is not in Minneapolis or Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I really love
this. So after the Capitol, and then we started working over in Gettysburg at the battlefield.
Oh, so is that where this 11th?
Yeah.
Is it Michigan Infantry?
That one, I believe, is at Gettysburg. Now we're on Saturday morning, we're driving down to Chickamauga, Georgia, which is just south of Chattanooga, Tennessee. There's a battlefield there, the Chickamauga battlefield. And we're doing the same thing. We're repairing monuments.
Oh, so tell us about
that's where the eagle is going that we're carving.
Okay. Tell us about the 11th Michigan Infantry Project.
Remind me which one that is.
The guy with the sword, with the saber, yeah.
Hands and saber repair, yeah.
Oh, that is in Chickamauga. Yeah, that was just recently done.
Okay. So who is he, and why doesn't he have hands, and what
his
material was it?
I don't know. They were missing for probably at least 50 years. I'm not sure. Nobody knows when they got knocked off.
Was he holding the sword? Oh yeah, he was. Okay, I see.
He was originally holding a saber, and they didn't know if it was stone or not. The records don't show. I mean, they have records of
it's
who
interesting.
made
In the
it.
photograph, it looks like it's metallic.
Yeah, I'm guessing that it was probably, but it's not dark, so it probably was not bronze. But there was a push to use what they called white bronze, which was actually wasn't tin, was it? Might have been. Anyway, that's probably what it was. But we said, we can just do it in stone, which was real tricky, but I thought it turned out nicely. And he's got my hands. I use my hands for the model.
So tell us about that process. How did you make the hands appropriate and fit? And
it was very tricky, and I don't really know how it happened, or just did it. But Normally, what we do is make clay models. So there's a broken piece of whatever's missing on a monument. We will add clay to the monument until it looks the way it's supposed to look. And then we get approval from whoever in the National Park Service. Say, okay, that's what it's supposed to look like. Then we'll make a mold from that, and then we'll cast that in plaster. So we'll have a model, and that's what we use to carve from. But this one, since we're using my hands, we ended up making molds of my hands, and then cast those in plaster. So I was able to use those, but also I was able to just stop and look at my hand because it's right there. So that's not a bad model.
Oh,
Give yourself a something to hold for your.
Exactly.
Yeah. They grab a chisel, so that's really you gripping a chisel or something.
Well, they supplied us with a replica saber.
Oh, nice. Can you just tell me? Maybe it wasn't a complicated decision, but I love the decision of it. I like how you did the sword, or the saber. I think it's really clever, to make that in multiple pieces, but you just totally hid it so effectively.
Yeah, there was. Well, we initially were like, okay, well, how could we do it in one piece? And then it was just to have them there. I don't know, they're 18 inches apart, I think, the hands, and to have that tiny little blade in between, and have that in one piece, and then have it line up exactly to where the wrists were, and have everything work out properly. It was just too dangerous. We thought it would just be very, very difficult to get that up there in one piece, and it didn't really need to be. So you can't see the joints invisible. So the two hands, and then the saber slides up through the blade slid up through my left hand, and then slotted into a little slot on the guard in the right hand. So,
are you doing this work on site, or is you partially that?
Yeah, that was all done. That was all done right on site.
And what material is it done?
That's granite.
Okay, it's granite. Okay.
Westerly granite. Most of the majority of the monuments are westerly granite. There's some other granites.
What is that? What's westerly granite?
It's from Westerly, Rhode Island.
Oh.
And their quarries are closed now, unfortunately. So it's hard to find nice big pieces. But it's a really, really nice carving granite. It's fine grain. It carves really nicely.
Now, when you say you did that on site, you cut the hands in advance, or did you carve the hands there?
Took a block, a big block of granite, and made it smaller into little blocks, and carved those right on site.
Wow.
Completely up on the scaffolding surrounding the.
Oh.
Did you have an audience?
Yeah, that's one of the problems with working at the national parks is you do get audiences. People come by. Earlier that trip, we had some news people come by, and then they had a whole program with rangers would come by and show us off. But because we've done lots of other ones down there, replacing noses and things like that. But people are usually pretty nice. But it does kind of interrupt your flow if you have to stop and talk to people.
Yeah, I see the nose one down there. So how do you make granite attached to granite such that it doesn't, fall back off again?
We try to always have a mechanical joint that will be there even if nothing else, even if anything fails. If the granite usually has some epoxy. Limestone, we usually just use a mortar, a lime mortar.
There's a pin somewhere in that nose.
Yes, on the back of that nose, there's a little dowel sort of stone that sticks into a little hole in the thing, so you can put it on there, and it's carved. And that took a full day with a tiny little Dremel, you get the back of the nose, the back of the stone wet, stick it on the monument, or vice versa. You get the monument wet, and you stick the nose on there, and then you take it off. You see where the little wet spots are. And those are where it's hitting, and you grind those away, and eventually the whole thing gets wet because you've managed to get it exactly right. And We
That's
don't
neat.
do it's not a smooth, straight cut joint. I like to have a fairly rough joint and a rough mating surface, so it's far better adhesion, and it doesn't, and it's only in one way, and it works much nicer, and you can't tell where that joint is. Every time I look at that photo, I think, okay, I can see the joint, but then I remember, oh, that's actually not the joint. That's just a little line in the stone. The joint itself is not what you think is the joint when you look at the photo. But
Oh,
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, how close do you have to get to see it? Because I can't see it from the photograph at all.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you can be a foot away from that, and if you didn't know had been repaired, you wouldn't know. Other than
Does
his
it
nose
show
is a
up
little.
when it rains? Does it dry faster?
No, the granite.
Yeah.
I mean, it's anything that sticks out, I suppose, will dry a little faster, but it tends to look the same when it's wet. Probably it looks more the same when it's wet, because when it's dry, it's a little cleaner because it's brand new. It hasn't aged. The westerly tends to get a slight, little warmer tone to it as it ages. But
Hmm. So when you were describing the method of like wetting the stone and then applying the Dutch or the
mhm.
to the stone to find the points of contact, how did you learn that process? Is that just something that you came up with, or was that something that you
Yeah,
picked
initially,
up?
actually, Margaret had showed me that, but she was using pencil and using graphite or charcoal or something in that. But that
Mm.
always,
Ah,
and eventually, then the whole thing gets kind of covered in it. It doesn't work as well. So, and the water, especially on granite, works really nicely because the granite doesn't soak up water as well as something like limestone does. So you can get it wet, and then it dries pretty fast. So by the time you've checked your Dutchman and ground away a little bit, you look back over at the monument and it's dry. You take a sponge, you get it, dampen it again, you stick it on there, and so it works
Mm.
out really nicely.
Hmm. Wow.
very nice. Wow, I love just going through your website. You said your website wasn't very good, but I like it a lot.
No, thanks. Well, I think navigating is a little tricky. We need to update it because we don't update things very well at all. And same with Instagram. I'm in charge of the Instagram account, which I remember to do once every 6 months. I'll throw something on there, but it's not exactly a daily activity.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we were hitting up when we had Sebastian on. We were hitting him up for Instagram advice.
Yes, he's
Uh,
the king in
he's
that
the
regard.
king. He's the king of stone carving Instagram.
Hmm.
Uh, but I really like your website. I think
No, thanks.
it's nice. It tell what I like is the way that you the photos that you post tell the story of, especially in the restoration aspect of it, really tell the story of the restoration, which is very
Mhm.
cool.
Mm.
I like that a lot.
Well, we're lucky down in Chickamauga because there's a bunch of Indiana monuments that everything is granite except Indiana. They're using Indiana limestone because they lobbied the Department of Defense to allow them to use their native limestone instead of the granite that everybody else had to use, which is nice because then we can carve limestone, which is you carve granite for a year or so and you pick up a piece of limestone, it's just like butter, no matter, it could be hard, more what you would normally consider to be a hard, nasty piece of limestone it's like butter. So that's always kind of nice.
Is granite? I have no experience carving granite. Is it at least consistent, or does it have hard and soft spots as well?
It's usually, I mean, the
Relative.
Westerly is really very, very consistent. The stuff that they use for monuments is very, very homogeneous, very, very nicely.
And do you
You
have
know,
like a separate set of tools that like chisels that you use exclusively for granite?
well, no, I use carbide tips, but I tend to use that for everything anyway. So
And you have to sharpen them.
yeah, you do have to keep them sharp. You have to sharpen them far more frequently than you would with limestone or marble even. I mean, you want to keep it sharp for marble too, but
Mm.
sharp for everything really. But they do go dull faster. But but you're sometimes with that's fine sometimes because you're doing more of a crushing instead of a carving away, crushing
with the
surface.
granite.
Oh,
Yeah,
with the granite, you're kind of crushing.
And with also with the granite, we'll use a diamond die grinders
Mm.
with all sorts of different shapes. Those work really nicely.
Oh, I see. Oh, so in addition to chisels, you use the
Yeah.
die grinders.
Especially when you get down to the smaller little things that you're holding in your hand, because you're holding it in one hand because it's almost impossible to clamp a nose, for instance, to a table to work on. So you're basically just holding it in your hand. And in the other hand, you can't really hold the hammer and a chisel because you only have two hands.
Yeah.
So that's where like the die grinder will come in really handy.
Mm.
And do you use a pneumatic die grinder?
Yeah. Yeah, like a little pencil. Yeah, it's a pneumatic.
Yeah, I have one of those. They're nice.
Well, that's for like a Dremel. We have die grinders that are bigger, a little heavier duty for roughing out bigger, faster.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, I know Bethany doesn't want to ask you more about tools because she's upset by your answer about the pneumatic hammers. But
you throw in some hand tools towards the end
when the tourists show up, everybody throws their pneumatics down and
pull out the beautiful wooden mallets.
Puts on their newspaper hats and
The guys in Italy gave me one of those as a parting gift. So.
Gave you a newspaper hat?
Yeah,
that's funny.
They did like you. I've heard that's a real sign of affection.
It's a great honor, right?
Yeah. They were very nice.
So you use the same set of chisels that I always thought.
Well, I have some that are more. I mean, they're more limestone chisels or marble, and then some are strictly. Wouldn't really ever want to use it on. Well, I guess for roughing out big areas quickly with.
Because I always thought that granite chisels needed more mass, like behind them, in order.
Yeah, they tend to be bigger, but I really like just the grip. I don't like the little skinny chisels that they annoy me. They're small and they're harder to hang on to. And
don't you need the angle to be different too? I thought that the angle would be blunter.
Yeah, when you're carving, yeah. So
but of the chisel itself, I thought that the blunter chisels were for the harder stones and the pointier chisels. But you said you use carbide for everything.
Yes, but my finer, pointier chisels are also carbide tipped. Some of the hand ones. I guess some of the hand ones are just steel.
Yeah, but you would use those same pointier carbide on the granite.
No, for the limestone. For the granite ones, those are the more blunt ones. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But there's some that you can use. Yeah, there's some you can use them both, but it's more. I can use the granite ones on limestone rather than the strictly limestone ones on the granite.
Okay.
They just wouldn't be very effective. You just dull them quickly because they're, as you say, fine and delicate.
You could use the granite tools, the carbide granite tools, on a softer stone, but you can't really use.
If you're looking to get rid of stuff quickly, and you got a big hammer and you're just blasting through. Yeah.
Okay.
That works fine.
Do you have a preferred supplier
for stone? For
your chisels?
Chisels?
Yeah.
No, I get stuff from
inherited.
No, Trowell and Holden, and then Katuri. I don't like the shape of the grip as much, but so they have some nice chisels there. Those are the main two places. I know we have had a couple made. Well, actually, Trowell and Holden will make them custom for you if you ask them, if you supply tell them what you want. But I know Bybee will too. I believe.
Yeah, I'm a big Bybee fan.
Yeah, I'm gonna start shopping there. You're having to make some stuff. I have a few things I need.
Well, his son, so Dan Roberts ran it for a long time, but he's retired, and his son, he taught his son how to do it. So
good.
Yeah, he's making good stuff still. So,
what kind of stuff can you custom? We're not getting any kickbacks, by the way.
Well, I don't know. We should start selling advertising.
I'm just curious. What kind of stuff would you get?
Like the length I've needed capital, for instance. I was working in between different capitals, and there was hardly no room to get a regular length chisel in there, so I had to make like 4-inch short stubby chisels.
Oh, cool.
Which is nice.
I had Jake just made me a chisel that bends at the end it's a long chisel, but it bends like about like 30 degrees.
Nice.
Right at so you can really get behind,
Mm-hmm.
when you're undercutting, if you want to really lift something off of the background.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I need a few of those.
Yeah, they're really. Stuart turned me on to them, and I got tired of borrowing his chisel, so I decided to get one of my own. So you mentioned that you went to the University of Minnesota in a different lifetime, and did you study? Did you know that you wanted to be a stone carver way back then?
No. I was an art major. At first, I was actually a biology major when I started, and then I discovered that I would have to. I was not so well adapted to calculus and other things that I would have to learn. So I switched my major from biology to to art, and then continued to take biology classes for some reason. But I didn't do hardly any sculpture, and they didn't really have much in the way of sculpture classes. Certainly nothing in stone. But it was drawing and painting that I basically was doing. And then after spending 6 years, I would say 6.5 years at the U of M and not graduating, I moved on to other pursuits. But by, when was it? 90. So that was in the 80s, up till the late 80s. And then somewhere in the mid 90s, I went over to to Europe in the late 80s, traveled around for 4 months, and was really impressed and loved the stonework. And I thought, boy, it sure would be nice to be able to do that. But I didn't know where I could ever learn how to do that. And eventually I did find some places over in England, of course, because they have schools and things that teach that, but I didn't have the means to get over there and do that. But eventually in the mid 90s, I discovered, I had a friend who was living in Austin, Texas. And somehow I came across some people that were teaching some stone carving classes. Turns out it was Kincannon, the brothers at the time, at the Elizabeth Ney Sculpture Conservatory. That's what it was called. I think it's just the Elizabeth Ney Museum now. I'm not sure. But they were teaching, they had some stone carving classes. So I went down there and took a class. And it was the first time I picked up a handmade chisel.
Awesome. So you were on like the Elizabeth Ney Museum. Anyone that ever comes to Austin is it's a really fantastic little tiny museum. But so you were in the school that they set up across the creek on the other side of the creek.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I was working at a monument company outside of sort of little northwest of town.
Okay.
Which now I was looking on Google Maps, and I couldn't find it because
it's in the middle of town.
It's in the middle of town. Oh yeah, it's unrecognizable.
The amoeba called Austin.
That must have been like 96.
I've always been curious, and I've never asked Joseph this, but since you were a student there, did y'all carve on those barrels?
I don't remember. Maybe I don't. It's been so long. I don't remember. We just had scrap stone, and I don't remember.
For some reason, I thought y'all carved on basically 55-gallon drums, but maybe that's
it's possible.
My imagination.
I drove, and I possibly met you back then. We're working up was it Florence? Where's the?
Yeah. Oh, did you come and visit? You came.
I drove up there, and I actually would have probably ended up working there had my girlfriend not decided that we needed to go back to Minnesota at the time. But I came and visited, and Bob showed me around, and I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. I'd love to be here. So,
did you end up staying with that girlfriend?
Not for too much longer after.
Oh, shucks.
No.
I wish you'd
come back to Texas.
Made that decision earlier and worked.
I know.
That would have been fun.
Those hard Minnesota winters, really.
Well, it's funny.
Them in.
When we left Austin, it was December, and it was like mid 70s. And 24 hours later in Minneapolis, it was about 20 below zero.
That's awesome.
And the heater didn't work on my car or my truck, so
Oh wow.
that was fun. Good times.
Wow. So you know Matthew's stomping grounds. That's cool. So what did they teach you at the Elizabeth Ney?
Just here's a hammer and a chisel. Here's how you hold it. Here's what you should do. I can't remember who asked me when I was working on my piece first thing. So he came and says, "So how long you been carving?" And I said, "I don't know, about a couple days here." He's like, "Oh, but you've carved wood before?" I'm like, "No, never, nothing." And I think on one of the podcasts, I think it was Joseph Kincannon who said, or maybe it was someone else. And it's something I've always said to people: if you can draw, you can carve, because carving is just drawing in 3D. And if you can draw, you're just carving. You just, instead of drawing shadows, you're just carving actual shadows.
And then in Minnesota, you started working for Pierre Jacquet. Is that right?
Eventually, I came back, didn't do anything with it for a while, and eventually I found him. I don't remember how, and then worked with Jean for a couple of years. I took a trip with him out to Pennsylvania for the very first guild meeting back in 2000, was it?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think 1999 maybe, or 2000. Yeah, it was back then.
And I was with him for a while, then branched off on my own. Eventually became a professional member, which my Margaret, who is a member of the guild but not a professional member for some reason, I keep telling her, when are you going to send in your $100 and become a professional member?
You get to pay more. What's up with that?
She is more than qualified. She went to that school down in South Carolina.
American School of Building Arts, right?
Yeah, there we go. Sorry.
Let's do that again, everybody.
Man, I tell you what, if anyone's listening that wants to sponsor our show, either
maybe we'll get your name right,
or a tool supplier.
We'll get your name right on the first try if you sponsor it.
We'll get your name right, and we'll talk about you.
Oh, that's cool. Margaret went to that.
Yeah, she went there, and then she eventually will make her become a professional member, since she's actually the 51% owner of this company. So so I might be just not thinking clearly, but so does Margaret go by Mona? Mimi.
Okay. All right. So I have met her. Okay.
You met, yeah. We were at the
in South Carolina.
The South Carolina meeting where.
That's right. And that's when we were going to have the next meeting in Minnesota, and then the pandemic.
Thank God the pandemic came.
Oh, well, we should reschedule that.
Yeah, maybe probably 2030, I think might be clear.
2030?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I'll be alive.
That's really smart, though. You said it's easier with two people than one. I guess.
Yeah, and just not just for the logistic aspects of moving stuff around and whatnot. We have sort of different skills that are her. She's better at some things than I am, and I'm better at some things than her. So it works out real nicely that way as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
She needs to join. She needs to become a professional member.
I know. I've been saying that for, I don't know, 5 years, 6, ever since we met, really, at the Capitol.
It really is. And Bethany and Joel, you all both need to consider that as well.
Tempting. I'm not. You guys are on a different level than me.
That's just right out of winter.
Yeah. I'm on A level. I'm not sure what level it would be. But it's A level.
That's good. So does that make you a founding member of the guild, Scott?
No, because I wasn't. Yeah. Well, I was there, but I was not a professional member then. Yeah.
Oh,
I hadn't been working as a pro for, I don't know how many, not as many years as I needed to be at that point. So.
Cool. So you've talked about restoration, and I'm looking at your website, and anyway, wide variety of services you offer. So what is your, and you said you and Margaret have different expertises. So what would you say is your thing, like the thing that you are best at? What's your expertise?
Probably more sculptural. organic things. Like this eagle, I love doing this. It's really fun. Although even though we've pointed it because we had to copy the existing one, it's still more fun. And then also I modified it a little bit to make it better. But
how big is the eagle?
It's about life size. So his wings are not fully spread. They're sort of, he's like starting to take off, it looks like. So wingtip to wingtip is 34 inches. If he was to spread his wings out, he'd be about 6 feet wingspan.
Oh, okay.
Cool. But he
Cool.
can because he's made out of stone. So.
And what's he sculpted out of?
That's limestone.
That's limestone. Okay.
There's a couple pictures on Instagram from a little while ago when he was still in progress. Well, he's still in progress because his head, neck, and wings are basically done. I'm not going to carve his beak open until we get down there, just so we don't bump into it and break it. But feet will be carved in place. So he sits on top of a monument, and we're going to cut out about a 12-inch notch, slide him in, and then carve his feet and finish his tail, and then blend that to the top of the monument. So once we get there,
okay. I see him on Instagram.
I don't want to drive down with him just standing on his little eagle ankles, because it's a long way of bouncy roads between here and Chattanooga.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like the beginning of a song. Bring it full circle. Why don't you sing us a verse?
A guy probably could sing that if the guy was so inclined.
Well,
cool.
Thank you so much, Scott, for taking the time.
I would say that's my pleasure.
With us. It's really interesting. And the website, because we've talked so much. We talked so much about the website. I just want to give the URL address again. It's northernstonecarving.com.
Yes.
And yeah, if you drill down, you can find a lot of the stuff that we pretty much have.
And if you do go to the guild site, which I should probably have that one will send you to my old website, which is still semi-active. Mostly it's a funnel to send people back to the other one, because there's a link on there. If you contact, it'll shoot you over to the other one.
Okay.
But I do get a lot of people. I just got someone today looking for a carved dog for a cemetery.
Cool.
From that link.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Yeah, great to meet you.
And thank you for your opinions about pneumatic tools.
I would say they're opinions, but they are in fact facts.
They are facts. Yeah, I agree.
That's a little more nuanced discussion to be continued.
Yeah, to be continued.
And on that bombshell.
You've been listening to the Stone Carvers Guild podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this conversation, and we hope that you will find us online at stonecarversguild.org. There you can find photos showing some of the things that we discussed today, additional information about our guest, and if you're so inclined, ways to get more involved with the Guild and our ongoing activities. And of course, if you've enjoyed this podcast, we hope that you will subscribe and rate us on the podcaster of your choice. 5 stars, please. We'll be back in a month with a new episode, so until then, keep your hammer up and your chisel sharp.